Well, look, I should just do an intro straight up and we'll hop straight in. See if I get this right. I'm producing tonight, so, I should be all right.
It's all on you.
It's all on me.
No
It's all on me
pressure.
again. And welcome to the Pagey Train. Tonight I have in the studio with me Dr. Holly, activist and host and all-round good person. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
But we're here this week to talk about the koalas. I must say I'm quite fond of koalas. I think a lot of people are, but not for me. It's not for the obvious reasons, the cuddly sort of side of things. It's there was a very beautiful photograph of my mother holding onto a koala when she was younger, and there was also a very candid photo of my father holding a koala, and I believe it was at the same park, but they hadn't met before. So at different time, yeah. Because there's an age difference between them, so it was at different times, but the photograph was taken at the same age that they were as children at this place. So even just for that reason, I'm very fond of them because there's a bit of a
That's a sweet story.
Yeah, family love story sort of thing in there. It's very very sweet and very nice, and that's when I think of koalas, I think of my parents' long marriage.
Yeah.
Which is weird. That's a weird way to think about it.
I think that's sweet.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because a lot of people have around the world, people like just really bond with koalas. I mean, we're pretty lucky because they are very photogenic and they are cute and fluffy, and so people can connect with them quite well, which is fortunate. When I talk more about this koala situation, they're not so fortunate, are they? But
oh gosh, I must say, but when the bushfires happened 3 years ago. There's footage out there of a koala going across the street. There was this brave lady that's taking off a shirt to rescue this koala, and then its cries for help will always resonate with me as, that really painful time for the Australian outback, the Australian bush. A railroad, fire out of control that killed 500 million animals, which is just mind-boggling in itself.
It's unbearable.
And something as symbolic as that, as the koala, and something that we all hold dear to our hearts, to hear it in that pain was absolutely awful. And I think it really brings into focus what brought about that pain,
And that's such a good point that you raise as well, because I mean, I've been focusing my attention on this one colony of koalas that are the only chlamydia-free colony of koalas that we have in New South Wales, and that's massive because chlamydia it's a similar strain to what humans get, but for them they become blind, they get infections, they can die, and if you're a 5, 10, 12-year-old koala that's blind, what are the chances of everything lowers your chances of survival.
Of course,
and after these fires that we had 3 years ago, we don't have a lot of wildlife left. So we need to be protecting and treasuring every animal that we can, animals, flora, fauna, everything. We need to be protecting it. And this
especially the diversity of it.
Yes.
I remember I was younger and I was learning about the Cold War, and there was an arc that they were going to put together for the nuclear winter of a mutually assured destruction, and all the things that were on that list were things like cows, wheat, basically everything that goes into making a cheeseburger. All right, and that's about it. And so the thinking back then is, even in a dire straits nuclear winter, all we need is these 5 things, and we'll be fine. We'll be fine, right? It's very, very ignorant and very, I suppose it's for the time, But now we have way more clarity about scientific issues, about measuring things, about knowing what is what and what is not. As politicized as things can be, there are some things that are and some things that are not, and there's certainly an effect that humans are having on the ecosystem, and it's evident by the bushfires that are in Canada at the moment. We know they're coming back here after the long growth that we've had. But how has the koala bounced back? How have any animals really bounced back? Do we know this sort of data?
Well, I can tell you about this area that I've been focused on at the moment. We have lost a lot of wildlife, but this one particular area, there's a Cumberland, well, there's this thing called the Cumberland Plain Conservation Plan, which is actually a development zone. And this has got, this is a beautiful area that we have that does not include Mount Gillard, but it's all getting developed.
Yeah.
And in this area, I think it was in 1989, there was a professor that was like, does Cable Down still have koalas? And then he did a study and he found this population of koalas at Mount Gillard, 300 of them.
Yeah,
some
wow.
of them, some up to 17 years old. Like, so this is a thriving population.
Yeah.
But they've been protected with this bushland. They haven't had any interference by humans because they can naturally get chlamydia in the wild, but also humans can induce it by stress can bring it on, by, pushing them into small, like, if you can fence them into an area and it gets too stressful, things can happen. If they encounter another koala, it's incredibly infectious. That's how they can catch it. So it was quite exciting to find this population. And then a couple of years ago, Land Lease was getting permission to build in this place. So there's 200,000 hectares of bushland that hugs the Georges River.
Yeah.
And
well, I know that stretch very well. I grew up around there.
Yeah,
So I grew
right.
up in Campbelltown. I grew up near Wedderburn.
Yeah.
And that was interesting facts,
it's
really.
a beautiful area.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Actually, it's the Wedderburn, for a little bit of history for people out there. You can check this out. Is the second national park ever declared in the world.
Really?
Yeah, so Yellowstone, Yosemite, I think Yosemite National Park was the first.
Yeah.
But the second to become a national park was Wedderburn National Park.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah. So there's some boasting rights in there for sure. But I think that's just testament to the idea of there is a conservational mind out there.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, Australia can be ahead of the curve, or with the flow, or even ahead of the curve. And I think that we have opportunities that are out there, but we certainly should be saving what we can. I think that's what we have as the advantage of humans. We have the potential. We're the only species that really has the potential to manage the environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like no other species can do that. Like it is reactive in its environment. We can change the environment.
Yeah.
And we're changing in negative ways at the moment, but that doesn't mean we can't change it in positive ways. So, the challenges that we face now, hopefully we get over ourselves and start making good. But how can people help out with these koalas out in Mount Gillard?
So, there's kind of two projects that are going on, and I've on my social medias, I've been releasing a couple of videos that basically, if you see them out there, Dr. Holly PhD or Dr. Holly K Smith on Instagram or on LinkedIn, and it's called Copy Plus Paste equals bam, you saved the koalas. So I've made a short video explaining that you can sign the petition and just copy and paste this letter that I've drafted and send it to Humphreys and Plibersek, so two politicians that are deciding whether to sign off on the Mount Gillard koala development. And that's how we can save the koalas. And we've got until the 1st of September. Okay. So we'll have it in the comments. So I'll put the links in the comments. So if you guys want to help out, check it out in the comments. And I've seen, this has made global news. So literally the whole world, in America, in France, some of the conservationists that I've been working with, they've had reporters coming over from America and interviewing them about the koalas, and that's great because we're getting the word out there. But not everyone's getting it. Not everyone listens to commercial news. That's why we need, social media and people hitting it at every angle.
Well, it's helpful that the Yanks like koalas. They absolutely love them, which is great. It's great because then they can get a bit more attention. But I think again though, I think the koala as well is one of those lensing events, man. Like through the koala, we can see the other damage that's going on. Because it's that affection for the koala, right, that we want to save the koala. But I think that conservation can, be a part of the whole mindset of how we're going into the future. And
saving the koalas means you're saving all of the other species as well.
That's right.
It's unfortunate.
There's a flow-on effect, yeah.
Yeah, and that and the Cumberland Plain Conservation Plan area and Mount Gillard have all of these critical koala corridors for them to migrate, for breeding and all of these other, there's a lot of other threatened species there too. Although I find it annoying that we have to try and halt development by saying, oh, wait, there's threatened species in there, which there is. There's a lot of them. But it's like, why don't we just care about animals and like try and grow this area that is clearly thriving rather than bulldozing it all down? And these koalas at Mount Gilead, so there is, since I've released details. I mean, people have been coming at this from every angle, but even every news report, every news story that I've seen, no one has told anyone what they can do about it. We just listen to the story and go, that's fucked. And then you feel sad. And that's why I needed to create an intervention so that people could clearly act on it very, very quickly. Because everyone wants to save who doesn't want to save koalas and all the other animals?
Yeah.
And something that's really important that I want to get out there too as well is that, people, one solution to, it's the most incredible bushland. It's got brilliant soil. It's got, I forget the name of it because it's a very long sciencey name, but they've got this shrub where there's only like 600 in the world and 300 of them live there. And, it sounds insignificant, but...
it's not. I've seen some of these trees, man. I went, I had the fortune of we went up to Gosford. And there's this tree. We went to go see the hieroglyphs out in the bush, right? Out in these hieroglyphs that are said to be Egyptian on these sandstone pillars. And some of the trees out there were absolutely phenomenal. I think some of them are even hundreds of years old. There's this one they called Mother Tree, and when you were there, when we were all there, you know that feeling you get when you go into the bush and you have this sense of being in nature. You're like, this is, the stars are out.
Connection. Yeah,
and I go, wow. And you have this wow moment where it's either consciously said or subconsciously said in your mind, and you realise, well, we all come from it. This is where we come from. We are literally, breathing stardust. There's a whole nature to the universe that goes beyond the biosphere, goes into cosmology. We're a part of this big machine that is so big. So ridiculously big.
And all of these little things are so critical. Like you take away that shrub and that has its whole little ecosystem of butterflies and bees and ants and insects that feed we all know that whole thing with, the bees go and the whole world collapses. Like everything has a place and everything is important. And
they found that bats are massive pollinators, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you've ever looked at the night sky on the east coast in Australia, in certain parts of the east coast, man, bats are like everywhere at night. They're supposed to be one of the most heaviest pollinators. I saw a photo of one that was totally covered in pollen. Like, it makes sense. They're fruit bats, right?
So or some feed on insects.
Yeah, but they're all they're pollinators because they just hang in trees.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So when they feed, they make a mess. Like, bats make a super mess, and that's why. That's part of it. But again though, like, even figuring out, it's not an argument to not stop saving bees. We should be saving the bees, and we should be conservationists, but. At least it is conservation. We can't preserve it, right? We can't preserve, but we can conserve.
We've got to conserve it, and and those areas that are flourishing, it's insane.
Totally.
To be developing this area, like but
especially with this day and age, man, where we know that there's going to be spots that are going to be totally fucked.
And you just said before, think about the fires.
Yeah.
500 million animals, 500 million wildlife destroyed.
Yeah, gone.
Like, how can we possibly be destroying this one spot? And people say,
well, that means they're more precious than ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're more precious than ever. Yeah.
And you can't move koalas. Koalas are territorial.
Yeah, they don't move.
So there's a population that that was moved in New South Wales, and a bunch of the males got killed by the other males because they were in the wrong territory. And then also, if you move them to a different spot, they get hit by cars and they get killed by dogs because they try and go back home. They want to live on one spot their whole life. That's how they survive.
Yeah, there's a spot in northern New South Wales, it might be Queensland at the moment, where they've imposed fines. So if you get caught with a koala that's been attacked by a dog, it's a $300 fine.
Oh, that's problematic because
then they won't take them.
Take them to the
because then they'll get done with a fine.
Yeah.
But they have to have the rule is now that they have to have like poles that go through their yard. So they have to have a pole at a certain degree.
Yeah.
So that if a koala comes in the yard, they've got a way out of the yard. So that's a part of occupying that space.
And that's like, before...
They're either going to eliminate them or you're going to make... They're integrated.
Yeah.
There's no other option. There's one of those two.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And with the Cumberland Plain Conservation Plan, like I said, all of this precious land that houses these precious animals, and they were originally saying, things weren't getting signed off, and politicians are making their minds up, and that's why if you jump onto my video, or we've got the links in the comments.
I think I've got it queued up.
Yeah, let's get it up.
Let me just pull it up for a sec. Yeah.
So, that's it. That's the video that you'll see, and in that I've got the letter and the link to the petition. So the petition is helping Penny Sharp because she wants to stop the Mount Gillard project.
Chlamydia-free colony of koalas.
There we go.
So this is going to sound really bad, because it is. But we can make it less bad, and we can save the koalas. We've got two problems. First, mega developer Landlease is waiting on our government's approval to flatten 53 hectares of bushland at Mount Gillard, and that homes the only chlamydia-free colony of our endangered koalas in New South Wales.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, let's just have a sec to let that sink in. Relocation doesn't work. They need to stay at Mount Gillard.
Yeah, no, they are territorial, right?
Yeah.
Until the 1st of September.
And the koalas, man!
Second, there's a thing called the Cumberland Plain Conservation.
They used to, I don't know if the koala...
a development zone.
Yeah, well, it used to be carnivorous.
That's what I was just
Tanya will
talking
decide if this conservation plan.
But
will
yeah, in that we've
bulldoze
got, and we'll add it to this
200,000
video as well.
Core habitat and essential koala
Oh,
migrants.
200 hectares.
And this is for
So that's
development.
the
This will be
Cumberland
from
Plain Conservation
Wallaby
Plan.
all the way out
Yeah,
to
wow,
Hawkesbury.
that's a big bit of land.
I know,
Endangered
and so-
koalas can't survive without habitat.
They
but
were
they
only-
also can't survive without their migration links. This development will wipe out
So I've got a
98%
bit of that, yeah.
of that precious bushland.
Um,
From 200,000 hectares to
200,000?
just 4,400 hectares of reserves sprinkled around the suburbs and the shops and the roads.
And so that's what
we all know how well that works.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to work.
No, and so that's what the petition that you'll see in the comments or wherever you access that information, you can just copy and paste that and send that to Humphreys and Plibersek, and then we've got a petition as well to stop the Mount Gillard production. But the problem is, so after I can't remember if I said this earlier on, but there about 2 or 3 days after, I know that from about 5 o'clock on Sunday, they should have been receiving, because people were responding and it was very positive and sharing, saying done, done, done. So I know they were getting letters. I know that they were getting signatures. And then on Tuesday morning, they said that they were on the cusp of protecting that land that hugs the Georges River, which is the very least that they can do, but that's still a win.
Well, it's actually part of the design. Like, 'cause as I said, I grew up around there, right? And if you go, and the reason that it was a cool place to grow up is because of these nature bands. So the whole place is designed for this. That's why Wedderburn and these belts, they're like, if you look at them on a map, they're like these streams of green. So you'll have like housing development, stream of green, housing development, stream of green, and you can cross between those neighbourhoods, and we've started to fill in those spaces, and that's the problem. It wasn't designed for that. The original city design and the city plan was to have nature reserves that veined out, and in between those you put residential. That was the intended purpose of the road layout, as the intended purpose of the whole western region, and they're not adhering to that anymore because of room and space, right? So they've got to select the proper land, or change. They got to build up, and no one wants to build up.
We got to decentralise.
Yeah.
London did it. England did it. All these other places. Like, I know we have a bigger space of land, but Sydney's full. If we've got anything that's working, like land that's protecting these precious animals, let's keep it and build somewhere else. Decentralise. We've got airports coming up. We've got
Yeah, totally. There's other spaces that we can go.
Yeah.
And even in London, man, they go underground as well. They go subterranean, man, because they're not allowed to change the skylines. But if you look at New York, right, back in the 80s, that's the size of what we are now. I believe it was at the 90s. It's around then. So like Sydney is massive. It's huge.
Yeah.
There's arguments for building up and arguments for building down. If you want to get more people in there and conserve land, you've got to build up. Right?
Yeah.
There's the only if you're going to put more people in there, you've got to build up.
Yeah.
Or create new spaces.
Yeah.
And there's land available for that as well. So, yeah, cramming it all in and getting everyone to have a block of land, don't think it's going to work.
It's not going to work, and I'm just so sick of.
Well, it will if you want to wipe everything out. That will totally work.
Yeah.
You will wipe everything out if you do it.
Yeah,
that will
absolutely
work.
will.
That will work.
If this land gets developed, those koalas are dead. The only chlamydia-free colony of koalas in New South Wales. This should be like.
So they're the most prudish,
prudish
koalas in Australia.
They're virgins.
The virgin koalas.
We should be expanding this colony. We should be like building around this because
I should be studying that sort of shit.
Yeah.
Like if you think about it, like if anything needs funding for scientific study into koalas, it would be a chlamydia-free colony, right?
Let's grow them rather than kill them.
Yeah, totally. It's the same with Tassie Devils when they because they were having they're still having issues, right? There's programs out there where at least the Tassie Devil they can relocate them. So they've been putting them on the mainland as insurance. So they put him in Victoria. So there's Tassie Devils in Victoria.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's just like I don't know. It's that whole thing like where we just go, screw it, let's develop the land and move things elsewhere. Like, I know sometimes that is necessary, but it just...
Yeah, well, I think that, I don't know, hopefully it comes to a time where we're learning to manage the environment better. And if we look even at, I think that's, things like The Voice, right? Why is that important? Well, if you look at before COVID, when bushfires were happening, they even got to a point where they go, well, let's talk to these Aboriginal folk and see what they used to do with fire.
Yeah.
Right. There's consultation, and that consultation has turned into policy.
Yeah.
It's turned into land management policy.
Yeah.
So if you think about it in terms like that, we got to do things smarter.
Yeah.
And we do things on a data and experience based metric. Like this, doing things that are totally economic in nature is what's cutting us short. Like think about it. How much does a tree actually make standing? Like we don't calculate that. We only calculate a tree if it's cut down.
And
how much erosion does it stop? How much carbon does it store?
And
how much oxygen does it give us?
Campbelltown is becoming...
How much would we have to pay to do that synthetically?
And the hot bubbles, like, where they create this bubble of heat where, the cities are like we've got no relief from the heat, which is warming.
Yeah, no, their own weather systems. Yeah, cities are so big; they have their own little weather systems. These are thermals.
Thermal bubbles.
Yeah. So, because the concrete's hot, you'll get these uprises of air, and that creates weather. That's essentially how weather's made. So it's doing and fires do the same thing, by the way, just at a more rapid rate. They are literally their own weather systems. In fact, man, like we've changed the Earth so much, right? Here's a bit of cosmology stuff for you. We have made so many dams, we've redistributed water on land, and it weighs a lot. So it's actually changed the wobble of the Earth.
Oh.
So we've redistributed so much weight around the Earth that it's actually affected its wobble. Like, it naturally wobbles. And we've affected that wobble.
That, but I didn't. Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, the dams have affected that wobble. So we've had that much of a... That's how much of an influence we have on the Earth. But, and I see arguments other ways as well. Like, for instance, the sun. There's no doubt that the sun is the most energetic thing that involves making, weather. That's unrefutable. That doesn't mean that the dials can't be changed in other attributes, though, as it's still doing its thing. But in contrast to that, how the solar system model works, weather does change depending on where the Earth is in relation to the sun. It does. It's not perfectly in the center of an orbit. That's why southern hemisphere summers are hotter than northern hemisphere summers, because the Earth is closer to the sun at that point. So the peak of an Australian summer is the hottest that it will get, because it's offset, and we move between that. Over the eons, we move inside of the orbit of the sun. So the north will eventually become the hottest. It will pass through the middle, and as it passes through the middle, and in fact as well, the sun and the Earth, the ring bends, so the orbit bends.
How long would that take for
Thousands of years.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands of years. But like tens of thousands. So that's where that you can actually synchronize. When all those three conditions are in play, because the other third condition is the tilt of the Earth. So the Earth is more tilted at 22 degrees. Summer and winter are less dramatic. So it becomes a very plain bandwidth, and it gets the system loses energy through the greenhouse effect and gets colder. And that's how ice ages occur cosmologically. So they can time that. They've timed that. So you look at the geological record, and it reflects what we would calculate through the laws of motion with the movements of the stars. They correlate. So you can easily define that, yes, this has a weather effect on the planet. It's pretty hard to refute that.
Yeah, totally.
But there's other things that have done that as well. Volcanoes have affected and created greenhouse effect and ended ice ages.
Yeah.
Comet impacts have ended ice ages and started them.
Yeah.
So, can humans, by burning all of the ancient coal, they can't make coal anymore. The Earth can't make it anymore.
So it's
coal occurred before the evolution of mushrooms, man.
Yeah.
So conifers and ferns were the first plants to occupy the kingdom.
Yeah.
And then they would fall, and nothing would eat them. There was no the bacteria hadn't evolved to eat wood.
Yeah.
And neither had fungi. So they were just deposited, and then after a while, just more land was deposited on it as sediment and compressed it.
Because we're all just like different elements that gets released and put in different places depending what's happening and when. Yeah,
carbon, man, carbon cycle. Us as humans are a part of that carbon cycle. We came out of it, and we will return to it.
Yeah.
But that carbon cycle, man, that used to be coal, but now mushrooms exist and they eat the wood, so wood can't turn into coal anymore because it gets eaten away. So there's it comes up part of the life and death cycle. It's highly evolved to where it was to where it is now. But we're in a very strange age now. Like aluminium never existed before. It doesn't exist in nature. It exists as a compound in nature. It doesn't exist as a metal in nature. But now it's in the rock cycle. It's never been there before. So we just that because my argument is the change effect. They say humans don't have an effect. Well, they do.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
And it's so
we've changed the rock cycle.
Yeah. And like
the water cycle with plastics.
Yeah, totally.
We've changed everything.
And then
what haven't we changed?
And then it's like, the world's changed and we had ice ages and things have gone extinct before, and it's like, but it didn't happen on purpose. We're doing it on purpose.
Yeah, that's it.
Like there's
massive difference.
We don't need to create all of this suffering. I hate vulnerable creatures suffering because we are selfish and stupid.
Well, look, we're robust. The record shows, and it's starting to show more, that humans have suffered their own extinction events, and we've survived them, and we're here in this new era. Like we've lived in multiple eras. If you look at the Aborigines, for instance, 60,000 years, man, they've been about. If you extrapolate from that, that means the Northern Hemisphere was there for 60,000 years, and that's unspoken for. All of a sudden, it's not 5,000 years. Like clearly, there's a missing story. And that story is about a big flood and a big meteor impact, Younger Dryas meteor impact theory. Certainly there's evidence that we were here in a different civilization. We got amnesia and we were on the brink of destruction, and that's probably happened several times to us to get to this modern human that we are.
I love ancient history. Do you know Stefan Milo?
No.
Oh, man, Homo sapiens and, Neanderthals and all this kind of stuff. Like, that's what I listen to every night and just over and over again. I find it so absolutely fascinating that there's all of these
we won against the Neanderthals.
Strange. Yeah, but,
we got their genes, though.
We are the one that outlived them all. There were a lot. That they're still discovering new human species.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
And I just find it so fascinating.
There's one in I was about to say Campbelltown. There's a new cave in Campbelltown that they found new origins of life of humans. No, there's one in Africa, South Africa. There's a new documentary out on Netflix. Check it out. It's about the oldest humans they found. They're like a million years old.
3.1 million years old was the oldest one that I've heard about, and she was called Lucy.
Yeah, Lucy, that's right. Mummified Lucy.
It's like, learning about her life, and it's like if you are you should. I'll jot it down for you before I leave because, like, Stefan Milo, listen to him tell this story. He's funny.
Okay.
He's this like quirky, friendly, intelligent English guy, and he's so great at storytelling.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to get it.
Well, I've recently done just all of John Hancock stuff. So I've been doing Fingerprints of the Gods and, all of that. And, that was intense. And I figured out why they're lying. Like, I know why they're lying. It's the Judaism, Christian, Islamic story. If you start talking about civilizations that existed 30,000 years prior to the birth of Jesus Christ, like even the year is based on Jesus, right?
Yeah, isn't that like wild?
It's weird, right?
Yeah.
And they even say that maybe some centuries are missing there as well. They've just made up time as well. Like there's a conspiracy out there about that. I'm like, that's a weird one I don't want to get into. But let's just, for all intents and purposes, 2,000 years. It's still BC, right? And AD, after Dominion, before Christ. So even time itself, the year, the millennia, is named after this. So it's an institution they don't want to let go of. And if they started admitting before ancient Samaria, before these guys were doing agriculture and architecture, these high-end human thought stuff. Clearly, we've been around doing it longer because the re-aging the pyramids go definitely teppy. Gunung Panan was the one that spun me out, man. Gunung Panan in Indonesia spun me right out.
Which one was that? Remind me.
Okay, so there's a rock formation called columnar joints, and they like little hexagon tubes. They form in lava flows, and you can mine them and turn them into buildings. And they built a pyramid into the side of a mountain, and it was like a sort of round sort of pyramid and tiered, and it was built, and you could just imagine the view, right? Like I was saying to you before when we looked at these hieroglyphs, there was something, that feeling in nature where you feel that awe. There was something, when there's something extra to it, it's spiritual.
Yeah.
Looking at these old trees, we're talking about these trees, right? There's something spiritual about it, and that's about the evolution of life itself and the ingenuity of humans. How we've come so far in our story.
And
yeah.
Do you know that I'm pretty sure this is accurate?
Yeah.
But the humans 100,000 years ago were us.
Yep.
This is what
Same thing.
We didn't have the same. We had evolved to this.
Yeah.
By then, and then we've just been getting on
Same
with it
brain.
until we
same brain, same body.
Until we get better technology and communication.
Well, we've evolved a little bit now because now we live longer. That's what someone said it the other day. It spun me out. It's like we live longer. We get to like 40, and then your body's like, well, normally all throughout human history, I'd be dead by now.
Yeah.
All right. Chances I'd be dead by now. And now what?
Yeah.
I'm programmed for 40 years. Now what?
You just said it's either a sports car or
quit your job or start a business, get a sports car. Yeah. But I think there's something said for that, But humans are like Terminators.
Yeah.
If you think of and if you want to think about the most predatorial species on the planet, it's the human. We are the most fierce. We can do on an industrial scale. We can fuck shit up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like even to basics, right? If you were chasing a cheetah, right, it could outrun you at 100 k's an hour.
The fact that we survived, like you say, with those kinds of predators, is a miracle because we don't have huge defense. But what we've got is our ability to cooperate.
Yeah, ingenuity.
And that's
and stamina. The human stamina outweighs any other animal. You know this?
Really?
Yeah. So a cheetah can run 100 k's an hour, but in 6 minutes, it's gassed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you chased a cheetah all day as a human, it would eventually run out of energy and you could just go and pick it up. Like, that's how much energy we've got.
Ugh, I'd love to pet a cheetah.
But you know what I mean? Like, that's how... We're Terminators, man. We're literally Terminators. Like, but you got the human strength is amazing compared to the other species. We can literally chase every animal down until it's out of energy and still have some in reserve for ourselves.
What if it eats us first?
Oh well, yeah. Well, that's it. That's the idea, right? We're not going to run. We're not going to chase a grizzly. It's really going to. It's going to eat you alive. You're not going to chase down a crocodile. It's going to eat you, right? But if you look at it from a metabolic point of view, we can run every one of them down, and then some.
But I think the thing that I just mentioned before that was about success too is like this ability to cooperate is something that's
Communication.
kind and inept, and we're able to figure out how to support each other. And so I think we've got to remember, because I know I can be pretty damning on humans sometimes, and myself included.
Yeah.
But we do cooperate, and we can reason, and we can create. So hopefully, with that kind of mentality, remembering that we are kind and that we do care, and there's this thing that
we are more than a horrible nightmare. You know, the ring of plastic in the Pacific Ocean's a nightmare. Nuclear disasters, burning all this coal, just us acting like jerks outright from, this is our green earth, right? But it's not just ours. It's if it truly belongs to humanity, it also belongs to the generations after you.
Yeah, totally.
You know?
I've been working with a few young people that, this amazing course that they've got going. Dr. Michelle Catanzaro has it going at Western Sydney University, and these students are learning about these 100 climate conversations, this podcast, and creating posters, and they're in exhibitions at the Powerhouse, and the young people are really learning and expressing their want for change, and it's like you hear that one student said, we're definitely not the first generation to deal with climate change, but we're the last ones that are going to be able to do something about it. And I was like, oh, gives me goosebumps even when I say that.
Yeah, that's it. And they should, it should be handed over better than what you got it.
Yeah.
And that's, certainly the previous generations got that.
Yeah.
They got handed something better than that they were previously given.
Yeah.
But I suppose the pendulum's got to swing, and the rise and fall of empires is easily measured. There's there's the pioneer stage, there's the ingenuity stage, there's the capitalism stage, there's the the regression, and there's the fall, and then there's the when we start celebrating chefs and sports people,
Yeah.
and we have to have a circus for the mob.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're at. We need a circus for the mob.
Yeah.
That's what we're at. That's where we are in society. There's a big indication that it's all going to go shit.
I do have a little bit of hope.
I do.
Because our government now, I think it was the first government that's ever said no to a mining project.
Yeah.
And I was like, because after Adani, I mean, how embarrassing as an Australian for the world to be begging for us not to ruin the Great Barrier Reef, and please just look after your environment. You're hurting all of us. And now this one, the world is begging for, everyone cares. They're they're going to kill these koalas. They're killing everything. What is wrong with them? But I'm just hopeful because our government, and they are responding, and we've got this deadline of the 1st of September, and because they're taking people's comments up to that date, and then they go, we're not listening to you anymore, and we'll consider what we want to do. The petition that is wanting to stop Mount Gillard, Penny Sharp, she's a legend. She wants to save the koalas. She's not a bad guy, but she needs a lot of signatures. And we're also emailing these other two people, Plibisek and Humphreys, so that for the other stuff as well.
And they're federal members, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, oh God, hang on.
I know Plibisek is.
Yeah, so they are. So they're making up their minds on that situation, but they are listening to us. And with a government that is supposedly considering the environment more.
It's supposed to be.
Hopefully we can stop this, because we can't. It's an embarrassment. And this is just before you said too, we all talk about it as it's our responsibility, and we really need some of the power to shift to us. Because we can't have the Reinhardts and the
that's it. But we're the custodians of this, right? And when they when Twiggy Forrest had his when he blew up those caves, man, that's just abhorrent, man. That's just ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. Oh yeah, don't worry. It's just the springs. It's the sea springs here. It's just ridiculous, man. How much value does that space have to offer for information that we'll never have?
And I tell you what, in the Cumberland Plain Conservation Plan,
and not to mention the feelings of the people that are from there,
our Indigenous community.
Yeah, it's fucking terrible.
It's just
fucking disgusting.
And around this Mount Gillard area and that Cumberland area, there's something like 200 Aboriginal cave art.
Yeah, there would be.
That with only 2 or 3 of them vandalised. We've just got these pristine, sacred land.
Yeah.
I just...
Oh, look, I've been through spaces like that. Unfortunately, a lot of it's beat up, you know, but some of it isn't. And all of the rock formations through there, all of the trees, the stones, just the landscape itself is beautiful out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then like even when I was there in parts where I grew up, it was treated poorly, and it's turned. I've seen it turn around. From when I was a young lad to where I am now, going back. It's turned around. It's now seen as a treasure, rather than somewhere to illegally dump your rubbish because you don't have the money to pay for the tip. You know.
Yeah.
That has shifted, and you know, and place like Wedderburn as well, where you got a lot of koalas there, and you know, people have worked hard to keep that together.
Yeah.
And that takes cooperation. It takes communication. Takes generosity, and we just can't. You can't just let that just idle by.
No,
just can't. So I totally support what you're doing with this petition. People should totally get out there and save these guys
and share it because
and they're pure. They're pure guys.
Yeah,
they're not too promiscuous. These other koalas out there are obviously a little bit more rambunctious.
We need to grow that colony and protect all of those animals and that land, not destroy them. And this, like I said before, this has made global headlines. So
the world is watching.
Share it.
The world is fucking watching, man.
I would love, wouldn't it be so great to get letters from people from overseas, America and England and France and all these places?
Well, you guys in Washington, I know you're listening. My listeners in Washington, my listeners in California and Texas. I've got a lot of listeners in Texas.
Please share.
Yeah, get on there and talk about this. As you can hear, it's important to us, and we all have these emotional connections to koalas, man. And not just that, it's a bit of a national symbol, and especially for you guys that are all legalizing shit over there, man. These guys eat eucalyptus for 23 hours a day, and that gets them high. They sleep. Actually, I think they sleep 23 hours a day.
I think they sleep 16. They don't actually get high, but they're very tired because it takes so much to digest.
It takes a lot to digest. Okay.
And that's the other thing. They koalas, they can't eat all eucalyptus trees, and certain colonies can eat certain leaves.
I thought it was just all eucalyptus.
No, they have certain ones that they prefer. Like if they don't, because it depends on their gut bacteria, and what they've been born into. So they can't eat all leaves. So when you've got them in a good spot, you got to keep them there, and you got to make sure that they can eat on them.
Yeah, well, they are a bit of a national treasure. They're fucking koalas, man. Yeah. They're the most laid back, most majestic thing you'll ever see. I've been fortunate to see them in the wild a few times.
You're so lucky.
Yeah, and I didn't know I was lucky at the time. I just took that as this is Australia. First time I saw him, I was down in the Warren Bungles, actually. It's what got me into telescopes.
Right.
I was down there and I saw Saturn's rings, but I could see the ring systems. I could see all three of them.
Oh, I love that. Uluru, I saw that.
It's absolutely amazing to see these things. But the telescope I've got now, I can see the ring systems. I can see the surface of Jupiter.
Wow, that's awesome.
I can see the poles of Mars.
Yeah.
When you see the pole of Mars, because you see the little orange dot, and on top of that, it's a little white dot. You're like, that's the fucking poles, man. That's the fucking pole of fucking north of Mars, man.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's amazing to see, but they're just out there, right? And this is, again, that's a nature that's so far away. It's another place.
Yeah.
But it has its own nature. And the universe has its nature. And that's why it's existential. You bring it back down to this. You go, well, how common is consciousness through the universe? Well, it's probably not that common, right?
Yeah.
It's probably out there, but it's probably not that common.
Not that common, definitely not.
Yeah, because the amount of time it takes to put together.
Yeah.
And the fluke of evolution that's required.
Exactly.
Like, if there's no Jupiter, there's no humans. You know this?
Yeah.
Because Jupiter sucks up all of the cosmic debris.
Oh, really? Oh.
So it acts as like a shield. So it's like a vacuum cleaner for asteroids.
There's just so many, you wouldn't even call them 1%ers that enable us to be alive.
Yeah,
on planet Earth.
Magnetosphere, right? Just having a north pole, like magnetic north, stops the solar winds from stripping the Earth's atmosphere. So the Earth's atmosphere is protected by a big magnet. That's the Earth. The Earth is a big ball of iron.
Yeah.
And underneath this really thin crust, which is the equivalent to a shine on a billiard ball, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, it's really thin ratio. Like, Like, we are literally on a ball of burning fucking Iron Man,
Yeah,
and we're
yeah.
just skin that lives on the outside of it. We live on that skin. Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like, even the ratio on a billiard, right? So if you go to the lowest point of a billiard and the highest point, it's bigger than the Marianas Trench and Everest. So the Earth, by contrast, is smoother than a billiard ball, and we live on that.
That's so amazing.
We live on the shine of that.
That's so amazing.
Yeah, and that's the rock cycle where we mine coal and fucking oil, man. We live on this skin. Yeah, upper mantle. No, the asthenosphere. I always say that in a sassy voice. It's the plasticine bit that goes between the continents and the upper mantle. You've got the lower mantle, you've got the outer core, inner core. And that inner core is superheated iron, and it spins, makes a magnet. And that magnet repels the negative charge. The negative charge ions that are coming from the sun, repels it and stops it from burning us.
All of these fascinating, incredible things that we are so lucky to be alive and exist on a planet where we're not like crushed or on fire or frozen.
Yeah, and the time to evolve against predators, right? And be the predator.
And evolve to create these beautiful animals like koalas that we are going to drive into extinction if we don't save these.
The evolution of a koala, think about that, man.
They've got 4 thumbs. Did you know that?
I didn't know they had 4 thumbs.
4 thumbs so they can climb better. Their fingerprints are almost identical to humans.
Wow.
Like if I
like that one.
Yeah, if a koala did a robbery, they would think that a human had done it from the... And do you know how they found this out? Do you know how they found this out?
I've got a movie idea.
Yeah, totally. They found this out. Something happened, like in America, it was in an American zoo. Some things were they couldn't solve some crimes, so they decided they would do fingerprints on some chimpanzees and some orangutans, and they were like, oh look, I think their fingers looked really similar as well. And then some situation happened in Australia where they took like a thumbprint of a koala, and they were like, you see them side by side, and you're like, you can't tell the difference.
It looks like a human print.
Yeah.
Yeah, how trippy. I like that. Yeah, but the evolution train of a koala, man. Like, do you know, like, wombats at one point were carnivorous. And so were kangaroos, man. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But koala's closest relative is a wombat. And they've got a really hard ass as well, because you know how wombats can go in and be burrowed and like have their bum out there, and if you get attacked, then so they've got a pretty hard bum too. Okay. And you can see they've got the same nose.
Yeah. Okay. Nose. Well, perhaps the koala was kind of. I'm not sure about the koala, but I know that there was a carnivorous version. It was a lot bigger. I can't remember the time. Because all the eras are named.
Was that the giant ones?
Yeah, it's giant ones.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, it was during the high oxygen content of the Earth. Yeah. So the Earth has gone through different atmospheres.
Yeah.
And that's another thing: the evolution of atmosphere and the tilt, and the moon that creates seasons. If you don't have that, like if there's no seasons, there's no evolution. Like no evolution to what we understand it.
Yeah.
Like, you can a really strange correlation that I really like. I really dig this correlation. Is the evolution of flowers and humans, right? Because they happen at the same time. So they evolve. Without the evolution of flowers, there's no evolution of humans. Because before flowers evolved, before the orchid evolved, which attracts bees, right? So they're symbiotic. So flowers are totally related to the insect kingdom.
Yeah.
And the bird kingdom, right? Like without them, they coexist because one feeds the other.
And is that because like the plants, when after moving from single cell organisms to multi-cell organisms, and then they started to come out like plants.
Yeah, change of environment. This is the theory of it.
Creeping out of the water at the same time.
Yeah, well, the one that I really dig on the evolution on that evolution thread of study goes into hydrothermic vents. So they found like crustaceans and animals that exist in things that are totally toxic to us. High sulfur dioxide environments around hydrothermic vents, which are little volcanoes underwater.
Yeah.
Kilometers deep, no sunlight.
But weren't things in the ocean wasn't oxygen toxic for a while, and then something mutated?
No, there was a big oxygen content. So it wasn't until the advent of the plant kingdom that oxygen changed, like because the plants
like,
made a whole bunch of oxygen.
Underwater?
There was more. I need to check this out.
Yeah,
but,
and I think I might be scrambling.
but the first sort of thing to evolve was bacteria.
Yeah.
Before bacteria was archaea. And archaea is like these really primitive, like most of us can be chased back to the archaea. And if you look at the animal kingdom split, we're closely related to the mushroom. That's why mushrooms work in pharmacology with us really well.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, our brain's designed to accept them. Same with other plants. THC, your brain's designed to accept it. There's receptors in your brain that's just purely for that.
Yeah.
Alcohol doesn't do that. Alcohol actually poisons you. It's an inhibitor, so it inhibits you.
But it feels great.
Yeah, you lose your inhibitions, man. Well, there is interesting one. Hops is from the same family as cannabis. So
really?
hops and cannabis grow in a bud, and they're from the same family.
Yeah.
So hops and weed are related. I did a little documentary with AI doing that as an experiment. I should post it.
I'd be interested.
Yeah. I just went down this rabbit hole. I'm like, oh, hops and weed are related. I didn't know that. So that's how pharmacology works. Is what we're related to in the animal kingdom. That's why we use rodents to experiment on, because it's
we're so
close to them.
Yeah.
We've evolved from them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before the monkey was the rodent man. Before that was they say the mammalian and the lizard brain, our third eye.
Yep.
Supposed to be from our lizard heritage.
Yeah.
They say, what came first, chicken or the egg, and you go dinosaur, bro. There's dinosaurs before that. Birds evolved from dinosaurs.
Single cell organisms.
Yeah, well, before that it was all single-celled stuff from archaea. Then it goes into bacteria. Bacteria goes into more complex forms of life, like amoebas and these single-celled organisms that then evolve into multi-celled organisms. Then it's invertebrates. But humans, man, fierce machines, very fierce machines. The Earth has seen nothing like them before. Like T-Rexes, between T-Rexes and I think some other dinosaurs, like 300 million years, right? And we're 60 million years away from the T-Rex. And that was a predator.
Yeah.
Like, T-Rexes were like the shit, right?
Yeah.
We're killing it compared to the T-Rex, man.
Do you have Apple? Have you watched? Is it on Apple? David Attenborough's dinosaur documentaries. Oh no, that was a while back. It's got a different narrator.
I've done a few of them. I've done a lot of them because I'm a nutter like that. But now I've got Audible, and I'm going to go nuts on Audible. I fucking love Audible.
Yeah. I was listening to that.
Audible is so good. It's
I have
like
to put it on pause.
Yeah, it's like podcasts on roids, man. It's fucking great.
Yeah, it is good, isn't it?
Yeah. Especially if you research what you want. There's a lot of good stuff out there. You can totally expand your vocabulary, expand your understanding for sure. It's so easy. It's so easy. I usually do it while I work. I sleep with my AirPods on pretty much.
Yeah.
They're always on. Podcasts and audio books. But it's all science for me. Science.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I love it. I live and breathe it. I know. I just like to check your sources. You know how people say do your own research. I sort of say to people, well, it's not just do your own research. Check your sources as well. It's a matter where you get your information from.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, like I like a good doom scroll. Don't get me wrong. Everyone does. We love that outrage. Got to be outraged. Outrage sells more than sex, which is really weird. Like when we were younger, everything was sold by sex.
Yeah.
All of it,
but
especially.
Yeah, you're right. Now it's outrage. Well, hopefully people will be outraged about these koalas.
They should be. Yeah, fuck, man. We should be doing we should be doing better. We should be saving these little guys. And as I say, when I hear of that the sound of that koala in that bushfire will always haunt me.
Yeah.
And it's a real big indicator to how we have fucked up. We've fucked this shit up, man. But it doesn't mean we can't fix it.
Exactly. We can turn it around. Turn it around.
We have fucked things up before, and it's changed the world. Like, we figured out cholera, man. You know, something so simple, but so grotesque to us now.
If we wanted to, we could actually, we won't go into this bigger topic, but we could not only stop global warming, but reverse it.
Yeah, totally.
With the science and technology that we have right now today.
It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity, man. Imagine if you learn how to terraform your own planet. That means you can go and terraform other planets, right?
Yeah.
There's an application to that. If we humans that want to spread and prosper and become a spacefaring, civilization, surely we'd want to learn how to do that. And that's what I mean. It's not a problem. It's an opportunity. And if you look at it from an entrepreneurial point of view, imagine if you could turn, craters of on the moon, turn them into farms, man. Imagine if you could do that.
Yeah.
Imagine if you could do that. 24-hour sunlight.
Yep.
Imagine the weed you can grow on the moon. It'd be great. It'd be insane. But you could, imagine if we could dome that, and put forests that have never grown here. Imagine the sequoias that would grow in 1/3 of the gravity. That's what we could do with the human brain. We could do that in the next 100 years. We could do that.
I'd be scared to go there.
Oh, I reckon it'd be great. Imagine the wood that we could make growing shit on the moon. Imagine what we could do on Mars. Imagine what we could do on Venus, right? Venus is really interesting. You like Venus, right? You don't need a parachute to land there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it blows people's mind. Mars, you got to do a parachute. It's 1% of Earth's atmosphere. It's really thin atmosphere because it doesn't have a magnetosphere. So the sun has stripped its atmosphere away. So it's 1%. It's really thin. That's why when you see wind on Mars, you're like, whatever. It's 1%. It's like, that's the wind. It's a tornado. Right, anyway. But on Venus, it's very different. It's like I think it's like 30 times the air pressure of Earth. So it's like being in an oven that's high pressure. So when they drop probes on Venus, it slows down natural. If they make it a little shaped in an aerodynamic way, it will just slow down and then just fall to the bottom like it's in an ocean. It's like it's air, but it's like an ocean.
Wow.
Because the air pressure's so high.
Yeah.
So when they drop probes there, they just go, and then they land and they start melting because it's like really hot surface. But it was the Russians, man. They were the first guys to do it. They recorded weather on Venus, like recorded its lightning. Yeah, and it sounds like there's how when you take gas where you like what is it like helium, and you talk with a high pitched voice. There's other gases that you can take that are noble, that are heavier. Let's make them talk with a low voice.
Oh,
right?
wow, that sounds fun.
So you can go the other direction, right? So on Venus, it's kind of like that because the air, it's denser, so lightning is like boom, 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 boom.
Oh, wow.
It's like really dense sounding rather than here. It's like crisp and loud. There, it's dense because you're in this soup of hot water.
Yeah.
That's air.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I always found that's why it's so fucking hot there. But I find that fascinating. I don't think we'll be able to colonize that. Put it this way: Venus has no magnetosphere either, so it strips back. So the gas, there's gases from Venus that strip back so far it reaches the orbit of the Earth. So the Earth passes through Venus's farts, essentially. Yeah, essentially that's what happens.
The arse end.
Yeah, it's the arse end of Venus, mate. That's it. Yeah, that's the description that you give to people outside. Just past Mercury, arse end of Venus, mate. You'll find Earth. Those guys know how to make plastic like you've never seen. They are fucking crazy. I heard a comedian talking about it today. You're like, do you think that aliens are just frat fucking college students that go, let's get naked and go to Earth? Do these initiations. Let's probe this guy. Yeah. We've got to check that. I don't know who that guy was. I should check it out. Just totally reference it. Well, go type it in the internet if you've got a problem. I don't care.
Wouldn't put it past humans.
Yeah. No, but again, if we're so capable, surely we can make a difference as well.
Yes, and we've got till the 1st of September, so we really can't. They are listening, and we are making an impact. So, like I said, copy paste the letter that I've written, and it's all laid out there, and there's the names of the politicians and their emails, and all you got to do is click through, add your name to the petition to save our koalas at Mount Gillard.
All right. Well, you've heard it here on the Pagey train. But all the information that you'll need, it will be in the comments. So go and check out the comments to sign the petition. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me on, and I really appreciate it. And the koalas are going to thank you and everyone that signs the petition.
Sign the petition, guys. Help the koalas.
Yes, please.
And guys, you've been watching the Pagey train. You can go and check us out on Spotify. That's right, video on Spotify. Or you can go and check us out on YouTube. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe. And hey, for you avid listeners out there, you can go and find us on iTunes or iHeartRadio. Basically, anywhere you can find podcasts. You've been watching The Pagey Train, and we'll see you next time. Love you guys. Thanks for all the hits, especially you guys in the States. You guys are all right.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, I've got Texans. Texans are loving it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I think it's my rural Australian accent.